Hi everyone, thanks for watching my previous video. I've thoroughly enjoyed the comments both in public and in private discussion with you all. As you can tell, I'm going to continue to make these types of videos, and there is no agenda behind doing these videos for me. The main reason I'm doing it is to share my opinion on social issues, world issues, politics, whether that be in the media, from entertainment or from sports. There's so many issues that we discuss today as a public, which comes from so many different fields, and we are more engaged than ever before in publicly discussing these issues. So I'm just adding my voice to that. It's not really a matter of being right or wrong. I'm not trying to change people's minds. I'm not trying to change their perspectives. I'm just trying to introduce maybe a different view on certain issues that a lot of us in our busy lives may not consider, and that's not because that we don't want to consider those perspectives. It's more so because of how time poor we are. There's not always an opportunity, and the people that sweep into that gap are normally people that do have a very clear agenda, that are motivated by money, in the sense that they want to sell more newspapers, or they want to sell more, they want to get more viewership. So there's those kind of motivations, and for an individual like myself, I really have no motivation in that sense. Sure, I would love for people to agree with me. It's always nice when people like what you're saying, or they share your opinion, and you have this kind of positive discussion. That's always nice. But I think more important than that, the discussions that I have with people who don't agree with me is really eye-opening for myself, and maybe I hope for them as well, in the sense that that exchange of ideas, that meeting in the middle when it's possible, it's a really important part of how we interact as a society, when having to make these kind of tough decisions about what direction we're going in. So I definitely want to continue doing that with with my friends, especially my family, and even just the general public. When you do this kind of thing, you're bound to get judged for it. A lot of people have different views on me. Over the past few months, I've had a lot of private discussions with people who have approached me, not so much to talk about the content of what I'm discussing. It's more so being like, hey Rukshan, why are you so angry? Or hey Rukshan, are you okay? And a lot of the time that comes from a good place. But that perception that, someone speaking about issues, or someone being passionate about certain things out in the public would mean that they're angry, I think is wrong. I'm not angry. I'm a very happy person. I have a very kind of stable life. I have, in terms of work and my profession and my career aspirations, I'm very settled in what I'm doing. So there's really no gain for me that I'm trying to get from doing this, whether that's kind of making myself happy, or making myself less angry by talking about these things in public. I'm not really attempting to do that. What I'm trying to do is really just engage with people that I know, and the wider public, and just show that there is sometimes an alternative perspective. There's a different view that's had here, and that's not because I don't agree with the view that I'm sharing, but the reason I'm sharing it is because it's important in my understanding that that people be exposed to that. Because then when both sides of a story, or when three sides of the story, or four sides of the story, you're better able to make a judgment on what you are being told by authority figures, by the media, and even by other people. So when you have these discussions, that, have you considered this, or have you considered that? You can't always look at these topics as right or wrong. Why am I being presented this perspective? Or why is, this leader saying this thing? Or what's the underlying information to what they're saying to us? So once you start to look at things in that way, it's very hard to just see things as right and wrong. You have to see things as being, consequential. in terms of, they're saying this because of this thing that happened, or they're saying this because of this change. And it's not about making excuses for these things as well, because sometimes people do say things at one point, and then a few weeks later, a few months later, they change their mind. And this has happened recently. I won't bring the topic up in what this relates to, but it's about something that goes over your face. Yeah, and I understand when I look at that topic that, maybe the guidance has changed, maybe the scientific opinion has changed. Okay, that's true, and that's one angle of that particular issue. But then we have to understand that, okay, if that's the case, when people are making a case a few weeks ago, when without that information, under what predicate did we all of a sudden say, yeah, that's 100% correct, that's 100% true? Do we always just kind of take the word of the authority figure? Do we always take the word of the media? Is there an area where public opinion or our own feelings or our own understanding of an issue is as valid or is as important? And is the reason that they're making these mistakes, is the reason that the authority figures or the media are making these mistakes, is that reason more centered around the fact that they know that they can kind of make these mistakes and change it as they go along? Would they have done more due diligence if we had been more critical of the things they were saying? Would they have been more careful if they had known that we were aware of, these studies? If they knew that everyone was kind of looking into these studies, or if they knew that everyone was aware of, the scientific research, would the people in charge be more careful? And definitely they would be. The whole reason that they kind of don't go into too much detail when they're telling us information is because they know that we don't know. They know that we haven't looked at the findings. They know that we haven't read the research paper, and they know that we are in a weaker position. So we're not a scientist. So they know that, and they use that as a predicate to kind of instill in us a certain kind of obedience. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Definitely, it's you have to have a balance between the power of the state and what individuals can say. So there has to be a balance, but that balance can't come about without there being discussion. So if I'm being critical of of things that governments have said in the past and things they're doing now without really taking the context of what's happening, the reason I'm being critical is because it's not so much about the decision they've made, it's more about, why did we listen to them back then? Why weren't we more critical back then? So these are things that you have to consider when you're looking at an issue. And when I say you can't always look at just right or wrong, looking at right or wrong doesn't really help us determine the viability of what is being done at that present moment. I'm going to spend a bit of time when I look at an issue just talking about what this side's saying and what that side's saying, and that those sides could be political parties, it could be different media organizations, or it could be two different public figures. It might be more than two different views, and just kind of discussing the merits of each of those views. And obviously I have an internal bias that I'm fully aware of, and I'm going to give my perspective based off those biases. But there's going to be an element of this is where I'm getting this information from, or this is where you should look to this kind of information, or this is why. And then it's up to the public, it's up to people, it's up to all of you that want to take what I'm saying, and then look into that further if you want to. There's nothing groundbreaking about what I'm saying. There's nothing I'm not doing extra special research, and I'm not like getting funded to do extra special research, and I have secret sources or anything like this. No, my sources are really just information that's available to us. And we're living in a time where there's so much information available, and authorities are providing us with that information. Any of these research papers related to the pandemic or any of these kind of things, you can actually go and read it yourself. Okay, you might not have the same kind of scientific understanding, but that information is still there. And a lot of the time, the statements that politicians are making, they back it up with these kind of research papers or statements. And what happens is a lot of us, and very fairly, of course, a lot of us don't have time to look into this. So we depend on, a lot of the time, the fourth estate, which is the media, the newspapers, the TV shows, the opinion shows. So they come out, whoever is working in those organizations looks at that information and says, yeah, this is the way that we are going to present it to the public. Okay, this is the way that we should approach this. This is the way that will conform to the government guidelines of talking about, issues related to this particular topic. So they frame it around those things. And so what we get back at essentially is another group or another entity or another person, their actual view on these research papers, or on what this politician has said, or on what's happening in this side of the world. We're getting back their opinion and view. And today, we don't really have to do that. We can go out there and look at all the information ourselves and come to different conclusions as well. And those two things are equally valid. So, I'm pretty I wouldn't say offended, but, there's this idea that, someone like me or an individual talking about these issues aren't as credible. And, we should look to these media figures. So, for instance, someone on a talk show. And these people on a talk show, they might even be, a comedian. And just because of the way they present it and their presenting style and a bit of humor thrown in, it has an effect on people's thinking. Like, oh yeah, this issue, yeah, this person's stupid, and yeah, it validates what I think. But just because it validates what you think because you find the comedy of it funny, doesn't actually mean it's true. And that's why you've seen this rise in people speaking their mind and individual views. And if you actually look at the statistics, people who are sitting in their kitchen or in their office or in their bedroom with a camera like this and talking to people are actually getting through to more people than the media could have ever imagined. And this is why there's this kind of clash of ideas, this clash of between censorship of what's allowed to be said in public by people as opposed to what's allowed to be said by authorities. What's allowed to be said by the media is different to what maybe I'm allowed to say. I can't protect myself. I can't make sure that I'm not taking off, the airways. Whereas certain media companies, there's rules around what they can do, but there's a lot more protections available to them. So this is only happening because there is more people talking and there's more people sharing, which is ironic in the sense that it's kind of by design that these social media companies want us to engage in this way. The irony is that, it's meant to be in a way that we can be ourselves and talk about things that interest us, or, talk about issues that we are, conscious of. But in the back of all that, you have this new element of, hey, you can't say that on this platform, or hey, that's going too far, or hey, you might hurt this person's feelings, so be very careful about what you say, or we will take you off. And that's why it exists, because there is a greater power in the voice of individuals resonating with people like you and me, everyday people. So, I mean, I'm going off a bit off the tangent here, and these are issues that I'll cover later down the track, but I just wanted to give a bit of an introduction as to why I'm doing this, and hope you have a better understanding. I do have there's a page that I have on this website called minds.com where I'm going to be sharing most of this content. There is a YouTube channel, which, I don't really care about because, it's depending on what I'm talking about, it might not be allowed. And there's also a Facebook page that I've linked here. If you want to kind of, follow along a bit more closely, I might share a bit more there. I don't know yet, but, and not really looking to do anything spectacular here. I do have other things I do in my life, but I just thought it's interesting to, share this with everyone. And thank you again for watching, and I hope you keep engaging with me.